Well, hey there guys, I'm Axel Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, the ZeldaEngine.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. Our first question comes from JJ Masters 1230. What is the hardest Zelda game in your opinion? And this is a bit of a tricky question because, I mean, obviously everyone's going to have a different answer to this, so, give your answer in the comments, because, difficulty is a very subjective thing, because one thing might actually be, trickier in design, but a specific person isn't going to find it tricky because it just doesn't challenge that specific person. So it differs from person to person. For me specifically, I would say that, Skyward Sword is one of the harder ones in a while for me. Though it wasn't, crazy challenging. I think the hardest comes down to Spirit Tracks and Majora's Mask. I think Spirit Tracks challenged me more throughout the game, but I think Majora's Mask was definitely much harder at specific points, and some of the puzzles and the boss fights especially were really hard. So I think I'd really have to give it to Majora's Mask for this one. But again, give me your guys' in the comments. Jordan224 asks, what is your favorite Ocarina song in Ocarina of Time? Ooh. Wow, there's a lot of really good ones. And it's actually, I think, impossible for me to pick an absolute favorite. But I can list one that I think in particular really stuck out to me for a long time and still does, which is the Bolero of Fire. It's just so interesting and unique, and I don't know, it's fascinating in a way that I don't think a lot of the other ones are. It's a very different style than you kind of hear with the Zelda series, and it just really fascinates me to listen to that. It's very cool sounding, very, badass, and I really like it. I think a close second would actually be the Serenade of Water, though, because it's just a very beautiful song. Again, tell me your guys' favorite. Star21 asks, what is your favorite side quest from any Zelda game? Mine has to be the Cafe and Anju side quest from Majora's Mask due to its story and involvement with other side quests. My favorite is also from Majora's Mask, although it's not that one. That one is a good choice, absolutely, because it is fantastic. But my favorite, I think it's my favorite for a very odd personal reason, which is the They side quest from Majora's Mask, where you're defending the ranch from aliens. I just love it so much. It's so creepy. It's such an odd atmosphere. It's something kind of unlike anything you see in the entirety of the rest of the Zelda series. It was just such a weird moment. Even when the only Zelda games I'd played were A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time, it just struck me as weird. I don't know. It's just great. It's creepy, and I love it. I love the Flatwoods Monster kind of urban legend reference. It's just really great. Again, tell me your guys's, though. Alright, and for the last of the abnormally high number of viewer opinion questions this mailbag, Mr. B Scene B asks, which style of Zelda do you like better? The cartoony, the Wind Waker look, or the realistic Twilight Princess look? Well, Twilight Princess isn't the worst style, although I think the graphical quality and the way they executed the style was a little poor. But it's not so different from the way we've seen in a lot of other Zelda games, although it probably executed in a way that I don't like so much. But really, I've always liked the whimsical styles better. I really liked the Wind Waker. I never had the problem that a lot of people had with the art style. I really thought it was an enjoyable art style, very whimsical, very fun, and a lot flashier than you see in a lot of other Zelda games. They put a lot more emphasis on stylish and flashy visuals than most Zelda games do. And I really like that style. Between those two, the Wind Waker is my favorite, but neither is my favorite art style. That comes down to something like Skyward Sword or Ocarina of Time 3D. Those are the art styles I really like the best. And but between those two, the Wind Waker would definitely be my favorite because of the whimsy, which I think there's more precedent for having that in the series. It's kind of what I grew up with the series with, or was introduced to the series with, having the more whimsical styles. And I think Twilight Princess's darker style, well, it was nice, wasn't kind of like what I like to see in the series as much. Case asks, would you like to see a Zelda game span over a longer period of time, where Link gets noticeably taller, allowing him to climb ledges quicker, or higher ledges later on in the game? I realize your question's a little different than that, and it would be cool, but essentially we've seen something pretty close to that before. Ben Noons asks, what do you think about getting to choose your weapon at the beginning of the game instead of just receiving a sword? Like if you could choose an axe and would receive a better one later in the game, like a Master Axe. Wow. We talked about this subject before of, getting different weapons, and I think I said that it would make sense to still get the sword and the Master Sword, but have other weapons you could choose from. Well, I changed my mind. A Master Axe, that's just way too good to pass up. Waffle Godman, who is clearly the deity we should all be worshipping, asks, do you think that the developers of a new Zelda game would be willing to change the feeling of the game as a whole, making it more dark and gritty, with harsher combat and more sophisticated, for the lack of a better word, story? perhaps delving into areas left untouched for the most part in other Zelda games, such as romance and Link's own personal feelings. I know that the development team has attempted these things before, and I just wish to know your opinion on the matter and whether you would or not you would enjoy such a game. Well, I think I've tackled the idea of the grittier styles. I mean, they can work in Zelda. They haven't been executed the best in the past, but they could be done indeed very well in the Zelda series, I think. But I think in general it's not a style I like to see. However, you can still have the deeper aspects you describe in a lighter style. And I suppose we could see them. I just don't think the Zelda series generally does tackle serious subject matters. I mean, you could certainly have deeper stuffs without it being really serious. And I think that it could happen, but it's kind of unlikely anytime soon, I think. Although, again, it's definitely something I think the Zelda series has... It's one of its biggest weaknesses, especially in terms of storytelling, so it would be nice to see. And I hope we do see something going in that direction at some point. But it seems sort of unlikely, and certainly I don't think any... current Zelda development team is really going to go in that direction. So, hopefully sometime in the far future we'll see something like that. Priest of Nehru asks, I'm an extremely devoted Zelda player who loves the spiritual aspects of the game, such as the religion and culture. My question is, do you think that in the future Nintendo will make a Zelda game more based around the goddesses or the culture of Hyrule? Well, you know, this sort of ties into the last question a bit, because it's about making a more sophisticated, deeper plot. What you're mostly, what I gather you're describing is world building, and that's something that the Zelda series ain't the strongest at, to be honest. Really building a world and making it feel real and alive outside of your own interactions with the world is something the Zelda series just hasn't done, and I'm skeptical that they'll get to doing anything like that anytime soon. Although, yeah, I would really like to see something like that. I don't know about the spiritual aspect specifically, although having a game that focuses on the religions of Hyrule would be really interesting. And I think that, I feel like The Wind Waker and Skyward Sword tried to do this a lot. The Wind Waker in particular, I think, succeeded more, but they were kind of trying to do that, just didn't go as deep into it, because, again, there wasn't a lot of world building. So, yeah, again, it's something that I don't think we're going to see too soon, but I would like to see more interesting world building like that. That would be very cool to have. Zelda Games 1095 asks, do you think Zelda games should have regions or just an open map? Well, I don't really feel like they're mutually exclusive. I think you're talking about things like Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword where they have specific provinces or something like that. You know, Twilight Princess actually sort of did have an open map. I mean, I have a lot of problems with Twilight Princess's overworld, but that's not really one of them. The map, once you unlocked each of the individual areas from the Twilight mess, you know, they were pretty interconnected, and that was nice. Skyward Sword, yeah, I think the main thing is, yeah, they should still have regions. They should still have separations of the overworld and distinct areas, because that makes the areas more interesting than if it's just some random stretch of wilderness. The themed areas are cool, but they can still connect and have a very open map setup. So, I would say both. Zark asks, if the Master Sword is magically enchanted to destroy evil, how come the Biggoron Sword is stronger? Because it's bigger, duh. Master's Swordsman asks, why did Link's fairy leave him at the end of Ocarina of Time? I have wondered this for a while, but can't get an answer. Help, please. Well, this is one thing that you don't get an answer for because no one has an answer. There was no explanation for this, it just wasn't addressed. Link's searching for Navi at the end, like at the beginning of Majora's Mask, at least as most people think, and the game strongly implies. So, but it's unclear why she leaves in the first place. Maybe, I don't know, the possible ideas, maybe for whatever reason, some kind of weird time travel thing, even though it didn't happen to Link, she doesn't remember. Maybe she considers her job done and didn't actually care about Link, so she's like, I'm out of here. I don't know, there's a lot of, I don't know, there's no real known answer, it's just a weird occurrence that happened, I don't know. I kind of feel like they originally intended it to just be an iconic sequence at the end of Ocarina of Time, and maybe they decided to turn it into something later without any explanation, but I don't know. Link's Fangirl 231, who got some of the songs and whatnot right last mailbag, asks, how old is Vaati? Is he Toon Link's age, or is he a lot older? I think that Vaati was pretty much supposed to be an adult. I mean, who knows what age the Minish character, like he was as a Minish, but as a human, you know, guy, he was pretty much supposed to be an adult. He was significantly taller than Link, had a more mature voice, was described as a man. I think literally by the characters when they talked about the mysterious guy who entered the sword contest. And I believe in the manga specifically, it identified him as a man where Link was too young to enter the sword contest. So, I mean, not that the manga's canonical, but he's supposed to be an adult male. The Minish probably was an adult, too, I would imagine, although maybe he was a kid, I don't know. Shad TP 723 asks, do you think that the Arbiter's grounds in Twilight Princess really could be a remodeled spirit temple from Ocarina of Time? Well, I've answered a lot of questions this way by saying, yeah, it could be, but there's no reason to think it would be. You know, it has some similarities, and it's in a similar location, and it has a statue of a sand goddess that may or may not be the same one. So, yeah, it could be. It could have it could be the same building, or it could have been a remodeled building, or something similar to it. But there's no reason to think it has to be, because, again, it's in the same location. That doesn't mean it's the same building. It could just be another building, and probably is another building, since it's never referenced in any way. And it just happens to have the goddess there, or the sand goddess there, because, well, it's the region, you know? And I think that given that the building in Twilight Princess, Arbiter's Grounds, has some history that's supposed to date back to Ocarina of Time when it shows the sages sealing Ganondorf after he tried to take over Hyrule, it probably isn't the Spirit Temple, because that was Ganondorf's hideout, and this Arbiter's Grounds was, even back then, some kind of official place of the Hylian government. So, it's really probably not, no. Alright guys, that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions to the contact information in the description, and I'll see you guys later. And with the last of these this crazy amount of opinion questions, abnormally much of them.